We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith,
there is a hope at break of dawn. Every morning it awaits for us. Though once forgotten, it was never lost. We're reminded, we remember. You are God and you move again. You are the start and the end of it. You shake the heavens, you stir our hearts. We are awakened, we are awakened.
we'll be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
There is a dream in the Father's heart, that we be known by the way we love. So for every daughter and every son, all together as one we run.
Yes, we're right, 'cause you are God and don't move again. You are the start and the end of it. You shake the heavens, you stir our hearts. We are awakened, we are awakened. Oh, we can feel you on the wind, we can feel you coming in. Oh, you're gonna move again, we know. We can feel you on the wind, we can feel you coming in. Oh, you're gonna move again, we know. So with every word you speak, we will follow where you lead. Go beyond the former things, we know. We receive your strength and peace to love our enemies, so that every human heart will know. You are God and don't move again. You are the start and the end of it. You shake the heavens, you stir our hearts. We are awakened, we are awakened. 'Cause you are God and don't move again. You are the start and the end of it.
start and the end of it. You shake the heavens, you stir our hearts. We are awakened, we are awakened. We are awakened.
Hey, Grace Athens. My name is John Raymond, one of the pastors here at the church. Thanks so much for inviting us into your living room on this Sunday. We've prayed and prepared an amazing experience for us to have as a community. I know we're all in different living rooms across the city, maybe even across the state. Maybe you've shared this with your friends, but so glad you're with us. I want to tell you a few things as we get started. Number one, if this is your first time with us, we want you to get connected. And so all you need to do is pull out your phone right now and text one word, and that word is connect, to the number you see on your screen. We'll then follow up with you directly and get you connected to all that happens here at Grace Athens. Even though we're not meeting in person on Sundays, there's all kinds of things that happen throughout the week with our ministry that we'd love to get you involved in. Number two is this. One of those things that we do throughout the week and across the city is missional communities. One of the greatest things that came out of 2020 was the launch of 13 missional communities at our church. From college students to adults, from moms and dads to freshmen on campus. Y'all, we've got some amazing communities happening right now. If one of your reflections on 2020 was, man, I really need to make more friendships and community at the church, I'm too isolated in my life, hey, let's make a change in 2021. Be a part of one of our missional communities. Our whole hope with that is for you to have a spiritual family to grow in God with and to reach our city with in the name of Christ. So consider that. All you need to do is one thing, just one thing. Keep your phone out and text this keyword community, or if you're in college, just text the keyword college right now, and we will follow up with you and get you in a spiritual family here at Grace Athens. We're so happy with what we see happening with those missional communities right now. We'd love for you to be a part of it. Lastly, we want to take a time where we do our offering. We think this is an act of worship just as much as singing is today, that as God has provided for us, He's given us His money through our jobs, that we want to offer back some of that money to the Lord and to His kingdom project here in Athens. So let's do that now. Pull out your phone. You can text the keyword give, and it'll prompt you on how to do that. Some of you already give online. I want to say thank you for doing that. But let's all, if we call Grace Athens home, whether you're a college student and it's $5, or whether you're an adult here and you have the means to really tithe here at the church, let's all worship God and participate in His kingdom effort by sowing in right now to that offering. Right now, where you are. Come on, let's do it. Let's not hold back. Money is something we never want to be an uncomfortable topic here at Grace Athens. It's the second thing that Jesus talked about most in the Gospels. Isn't that crazy? Because He knew where your heart is, your money follows. Your money's there also. And so we want to sow into those matters of the heart with God's kingdom and His local church. So let's do that now as we worship the Lord this Sunday. Thanks so much for being with us.
every breath that I am made, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your voice has led me through the fire and darkness. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend. And I have the goodness. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am made, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, 'cause your goodness is running out, it's running after me. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. My life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running out, it's running after me. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running out, it's running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am made, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
You're the lamp unto my feet. When I don't know where to run to, you're the whisper to my hope. You're the light that guides my life. When I'm broken, when I'm whole, and when I'm full and when I'm empty, you're my refuge and my shield, and your promise will surround me. So I lift my voice unto the Lord. He never changes. And praise the Lord of every high and low, the King of every season. You're my future without fear. You're my memories without shame. And to prove your love for me, you broke into my heart, locked the door to stay. So I lift my voice unto the Lord. He never changes. Praise, praise the Lord of every high and low, the King of every season. Sing, oh, 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 so I lift my voice unto the Lord. Never changes. Oh, and praise, praise the Lord of every high and low, the King of every season. So I lift my voice unto the Lord. Never changes. Praise, praise the Lord of every high and low, the King of every season.
Good morning, Grace Athens. I am here with my good friend Mason, who I've been serving with almost every Sunday this past fall semester. And he is just here as another installment of our Faces of Grace series. So this series is to show you week in and week out one more amazing face of Grace Athens while we're having our online church experience during this time. So I've invited Mason here because he has an incredible passion and he is doing a lot at Grace Athens to make sure we are serving our community. So I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to everybody, your time at Grace and how you got involved, and even a little bit about your school experience so they can get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Mason, and I'm a freshman at UGA. I heard about Grace Athens over the summertime. At my job, I was able to have time to listen to music, so I decided it was a good time to get started at listening to different churches in the area. So I found Grace Athens on Spotify and started listening to a whole bunch of the sermons, and just found I loved it and I had to go here. So the moment I got here in August, I started attending, and then I joined the hospitality team about a month later. And I've just been loving it, coming every week and doing as much as I can with the church. So I've just been loving Grace Athens and so thankful to be part of this community.
That's awesome. So if you can just tell everyone a little bit about some of the things you're passionate about and some of the needs that you've seen that you brought to all of our attention in the community.
Yeah, so for the past few years, I've just been really passionate about food insecurity and just community development. God has definitely put that heavy on my heart, and to do that both tied into my career, which is why I'm majoring in agricultural education so I can help fight food insecurity, but also just during my time here in Athens, hearing about how 1 in 4 kids here are on free or reduced lunches, and especially if they're online, if they're at home and doing online school, they don't have access to that food, and their family doesn't have access to that. So with nonprofits like the Sparrow's Nest, there's a big need right now for food for these kids. So seeing that there's a need right now, I am just really passionate about jumping into that. In Matthew 25, Jesus talks about how on Judgment Day, he calls us his children because we served him. He said that we were there for the hungry, and we were there for the sick, and we were there for gave clothing to the naked, and that's how we served God. So I'm just a very big believer in making that my ministry, and doing that as much as I can, no matter where I'm at. So just calling out to the church to help become a bigger part in that kind of a work, and really amplify the serving ministry of the community.
Yeah, that's great. So can you tell everybody this month what is one way that they can press into service and giving and meeting some of those needs in our city?
Yeah, so we're starting to collect some food to give to the Sparrow's Nest, and they give out lunches to kids throughout the Athens community and throughout Clark County. So we're trying to collect different snack food, things that you could pack in kids' lunches for this entire month. So any food that you could go, whenever you go to the store yourself, just buy one thing that could go help support kids. I think it's amazing that God has given us just so much abundance in America, and I think it would be cool if, in the same way, before we pray before we eat, and that reminds us of God. If we go shop, that reminds us of God by going to make an offering to Him. So this month we're just focusing on that and focusing on the kids that are in food secure families and helping support them, and then sharing the gospel through that. Because there's no better way to share the gospel than through service, and through bringing first the love of Christ and then the news of Christ after and with that.
Yeah, thank you. So Mason's right. Yeah, we're collecting kids' snacks for lunches, and we're going to be giving them to the Sparrow's Nest on January 29th. So all throughout the month of January, what's left of it, you're welcome to bring any snacks that would be great for kids' lunches. You can leave them at our office. We are at 250 Epps Bridge Lane, and you can bring those donations on any Monday or any Thursday throughout the rest of January. So that specific drive will end at the end of January, but keep a lookout with your MC, with your discipler, with your friends. Keep a lookout month in and month out. We'll have a new drive every month and a new city partner that you can get to know and build relationship with if you love to serve and if you're just looking for an opportunity. So we'd love if you could get involved in this opportunity. Thank you, Mason, for being here today, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the service.
Thanks for joining us this morning. If you have a Bible, we're going to start at the end of Acts 15 and then move into Acts 16. And while you're flipping there, I want to ask a question. Have you ever been shocked or surprised by something? You could probably recall maybe some of the events that have happened over these past few weeks. Maybe there's been something that's happened to you that you've been shocked by. Maybe you have a family member that might have caught COVID. There might be plenty of things that's happened to you that have been surprising or shocking this past year. I hate surprises, good or bad. I do not like them. One time when I was a kid, we were always being filmed on an old recorder, and there is this video of me getting a gift for Christmas. And I'm an Enneagram 3 for you Enneagram lovers out there. I had to feel a certain sort of way with whatever surprise I was given. So I was given a gift that I was surprised by, and when I opened up the gift, I said, this is what I've always wanted. And I had no idea what the gift actually was. And so then right after that, I say, actually, what is this? I need to ask what this is. This is what I wanted, but really, what is this? And for me, I feel like I had to put on some sort of facade, even though I was shocked or surprised by something. You may react differently to surprises. You may act different ways when you get shocked. But what is happening is that there is something that is outside of our own thinking that comes into our world. There's something outside of the boxes that we have put up, the things that we have compartmentalized, the circumstances that we think, or maybe the mental outcomes of an event that are going to happen. And then something comes from outside of it, and it shocks and surprises us. My hope this morning is that there would be a good shock or surprise when we read this text, that the words that would come off the page to you this morning would shock and surprise you and would hopefully break down our own perspective of God and how He acts, how His good news moves, and then how we also interact with others as we go. So that's what we're going to be looking at this morning at the end of Acts 15 and into Acts 16. And my hope and my prayer is that we would be shocked, that the walls that we've put up in our brain would come tumbling down, and that we would wake up refreshed and excited for the shocks and surprises that are to come, whether they appear good or even bad. So let's look at this and see why this shock and surprise is happening and why it's so important for us to be excited about what a shock and surprise might be. So let's start with a shock right here within the core of the group in Acts 15, verse 39. And there arose a sharp disagreement, so that they separated from each other. Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed to Cyprus, but Paul chose Silas and departed, having been commended by the brothers to the grace of the Lord. And he went through Syria and Cilicia and strengthening the churches. So we see that strengthening the churches there. And why does Luke write this? Why does he write that at the core of it all, we see a sharp disagreement, and then we see them moving into different places. We see them moving to different places, and then it says strengthening the churches. Why does he bring that up? Well, this core group has been such a core group for a while, and then there's this sharp disagreement. There's this shockwave that goes throughout the church here, and we see this playing out further of what God was doing with this sort of disagreement. So let's read that. Verse 4, you'll see this a lot in this text. It says this: as they went on their way through the cities, they delivered to them for observance the decisions that had been reached by the apostles and the elders that were in Jerusalem where the disagreement took place. So the churches in those areas were strengthened in their faith, and they increased in their number daily. Even with this sharp disagreement that took place, even though there was this shock wave within this church, they end up going to these cities, and we see that the church is strengthened. We see that they continue to increase in their number, that God is redeeming whatever disagreement was happening, and He's also using that disagreement to reach other people in other cities. Point number one is this, is that we just need to have this perspective when it comes to this, is that God's promises will not be stopped. From the very beginning, Acts 1:8 says, I'm going to the ends of the earth by my Spirit through you, and I will not be stopped. God's promises cannot be stopped. Even at the very center of where this movement happens, God is saying, no matter what, my promises cannot and will not be stopped. They will not return void. They will not be empty. If I am moving into these cities, I will move into these cities. It is a promise from Acts 1:8 that is now taking place in all of these cities. So point number one is we see that God's promises wouldn't be stopped. And we see this happening, that with that promise, what we can hold on to just very practically is that we can actually go without hesitation, that we can actually move. Remember that word in verse 4, it says, as they went on their way. It's this idea that no matter where you go, as you go, you share God's promises, you strengthen the church, and you increase in its number daily. Those are promises that have been given to us, that now as we go, we can share these promises and they will not return void. That we can go to people in their context, and if they have some pretty bad news that is happening in their life, we can actually give them some good news that will last, even if it's a seed in their heart. Maybe we don't see it flourish. Maybe we don't see it become a huge forest in that moment. What we can know is that we have put this promise into their lives, and that promise will not return void. There will be some sort of kingdom of God return on us sharing the gospel as we go. And so it says that as they went on their way, they shared the promises of God. The church was strengthened and increased in number. And we need to know that. We need to take the pressure off of ourselves when we talk about Jesus in this world, in this time, that we can actually share who Jesus is and the promises that he delivers us, that what he brings to us will not be empty. There may be other things in this world that may come back empty. If you missed last week, I encourage you to watch last week's message with John, where he talks about how we can have Jesus plus something else, and we think that equals everything. Jesus plus our politics then equals everything. But no, he's saying, no, it is Jesus plus nothing else equals everything. That whatever we might put in that place, maybe it's not politics, maybe it's something else for you, that Jesus plus something else, that stuff may return void, but Jesus's promises will not return void. And so as we go, we can actually go in that kind of confidence, sharing the promises of God, sharing the good news of God in places of bad news where they are at. And those promises cannot be stopped. Now, that's not all that happens. There's another shock wave that comes to us. And I think that's the first main shock is that we can share the good news of God, and God will do something with it, that the promises will actually begin moving. Maybe it just looks like, again, a seed. Maybe it doesn't look like there's this big life change in the moment, but that there is something happening when we share the promises of God. We need to, break out of our own thinking to think, oh, if I just share something, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, maybe nothing happens to it, maybe I don't learn anything, maybe they don't learn anything. We need to break out and be shocked and surprised that God's promises still work for today, and that there is something that happens when we share these kinds of promises with his people. Now, you see this second part here in verse 6 going through verse 9. It says, then they went to the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having forbidden by the Holy Spirit to speak the word in Asia. And when they had come to Mysia, they had attempted to go into Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus did not allow them. So, passing by Mysia, they went down to Troas, and a vision appeared to Paul in the night. I'm going to stop there. What's happening is they're moving into a city, and then it says, the Spirit of Jesus did not allow them. It shows that the Spirit of Jesus is in control here. It's not the things that are happening in those cities, but the Spirit of Jesus says, I'm not allowing you to go there because I want you to go somewhere else. And so point number 2 is we need to go until God shows us different. We need to go until God shows us that we should be moving maybe towards a different person or towards a different circumstance. We need to go until God shows us different. And when he shows us different, we need to not feel so like personally guilty or shameful or wrong. We need to say, okay, because he doesn't want me to move in this direction, or I don't feel called to move in this direction right now, it's because there is something else that he wants me to move into. And so you see Paul moving in this direction. They say God shows him something different. So he goes in that direction now. And we see a vision appearing to Paul in the night. And it is a man of Macedonia was standing there, urging him and saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." And when Paul had seen the vision, immediately we sought to go into Macedonia, concluding that God has called us to preach the gospel to them. So now they think they're heading this way. Spirit of Jesus shuts that off because he wants him to go another way. And then Jesus is guiding him into this new place of Macedonia. And so we see that God has now shown him something different. But within that, we see God has called us to preach the gospel to them. Now, I'm going to list all these things out here in just a second, but now we get to see the good news that is moving, these promises that I mentioned earlier that we're supposed to share that will break down our own perspectives and sometimes shock us about how his promises move. We're going to see where those promises move to and what those promises are about. And so we get to see them going in a different direction with God's promises. And it says God has called us to teach the gospel, the good news of Jesus, to them. And this is what the gospel is doing. This is what the good news is being shared here in the directions that do not return void, that they can't be stopped, like I said in point 1. This is what it says in verse 11. Keep the gospel in mind here. So setting sail from Troas, we made a different voyage. They're doing this together. Look at the language here. There's we, us, all throughout this passage. It's because they're going together into this thing. To this voyage to Samothrace, and the following day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is a leading city of the district of Macedonia, a Roman colony. Philippi, just so you know, is these former Roman soldiers, these high up retired government officials. They're very Roman. They got gold mines in them. Rich, wealthy people are in Philippi. And this is what it says. And it says this. It says that we remained in the city for some days. And verse 13, and on the Sabbath day, that's going to be key, we went outside of the gate to the riverside where we were supposed to be. There was a place of prayer, and we sat down and we spoke to the women who had come together. One who heard us was a woman named Lydia from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple goods who was a worshiper of God. The Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was being said to Paul. And after she was baptized, her whole household as well gets baptized. She's urged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay." And she prevailed upon us. Listen to what happens with the gospel. We think sometimes that we need to go share with the wealthy people, with the rich people, with the well-known people, with the ones with all the influence. That we need to be the people who says, let's go to the highest influential person with all the money, with all the say, the one that's going to do the speech, the leader of leaders. We need to go share the gospel with them. But what is happening here is it's breaking down that boundary. What we see that's happened from the very beginning is Paul gets a vision. And so we see that the gospel crosses an intellectual boundary. That the gospel was made even to cross boundaries. We see it go from the rich people, and then they go outside the gate to where there are refugees there. So it's crossing an economic boundary. It's crossing an intellectual boundary, like I said. It's also crossing an ethnic and racial boundary and even a religious boundary by the time that they are meeting on this Sabbath day. And even further than that, this verse in verse 14 where they talk about Lydia, in this time you're not even supposed to say a woman's name. And Luke says, no, I'm writing her first name down here in this text. It crosses this kind of taboo social boundary. And then verse 15, this whole family gets baptized. It's not about an individual getting saved and coming to faith and having this amazing relationship with Jesus. In verse 15, it says the whole family gets baptized. The whole family is seeing the good news in their own life, and they too are transformed. It has crossed a kind of family boundary. It is not just about an individual, but it's saying, I want to rescue the whole family of this person. We see that the gospel crosses boundaries. And my question to us is, what boundaries have you put in place when it comes to the sharing of the gospel? Because the good news is that it does not count anyone out. The good news will actually go to the cracks and crevices of the world that nobody talks about. That the good news goes to the person who thinks no one is thinking about them. The good news goes beyond just an individual person and says, I want to rescue your whole family. The gospel isn't about making money. It's about transforming lives no matter what they look like, no matter what they think about. The gospel crosses all sorts of boundaries. And so for us, the question is, what boundaries have we put up on the gospel? What boundaries have we put up in our lives, in our relationships, even about ourselves, that we have put up and we said, oh, you know what? The good news is actually not the right news to share here. It's something else that we need to share. The good news is not going to actually be effective here. So therefore, there needs to be a boundary up or a wall put up around what is effective when it comes to sharing the good news. What boundaries have we put up on the good news? What boundaries have we put up on sharing what Jesus has done by his death, burial, and resurrection, saving us from our sin, but also saving us to live, not just free from death, but free to life in him? What boundaries have we put up? I would love for you to discuss this with maybe your missional community, maybe your roommates, to begin asking that question where it might feel awkward or uncomfortable to maybe share the good news of Jesus with a friend because we think it's not going to be powerful or effective. We think maybe it's going to be offensive and hurtful. Would we be willing to take those boundaries down and actually go until God shows us different? Will we be able to take those boundaries down and realize that the gospel can cross every boundary and that God's promises will not return void? Will we hold on to that reality, knowing that the gospel will not be stopped and that we are called to participate? We, us, all of us here are called to participate in this and going until God shows us a different path. And would we allow him to cross the boundaries first of what we've put up towards ourselves? That maybe the grace of Jesus wants to move into your heart, into your mind, into your thinking, maybe about the past or maybe about the way that things are. Maybe the grace of God wants to come to you and say, I will redeem these things one day. I will make all things new. That is not changed. That is not a void. That is not empty. I see you in your fears. I see you in your hesitations. I see the defenses that you've put up with me. Will you lower them so that I can love you? The way that you are meant to be loved, the way you're meant to be cared for, the way my good news is supposed to move across those boundaries and defenses. So what boundaries have you put up for your own life to encounter the grace of God in your life? And then what other boundaries have you put up maybe thinking, oh, I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the right things to say to this person, and so it's going to be easier for me to wall up the gospel and try to give them something else. And maybe that will satisfy their bad news or their struggle or their emptiness. What boundaries have we put up against God, and what boundaries have we put up against other people, maybe for our own safety or self-worth? That's the question I have for us this morning. I hope the word challenges you. I ask that you, again, share it with your friends, talk about it, answer those questions, read through this passage again, and just feel the grace of God moving towards you. Maybe you are the Lydia in the story where you're just on the side of where all of the magic is happening and you think no one else sees you or gets you. Maybe the grace of God can begin to move towards you, even if there are boundaries that are put up. I hope this encourages you. I hope this challenges you. Begin talking about it with your community and begin answering those questions, because I believe that the grace of Jesus Christ is still powerful and effective. It still moves us to go, and it can cross any sort of boundary with love and care for you and for the ones around you. We love you, Grace, and we'll see you next week.
All things have passed away. Your love has stayed the same. Your constant grace remains the cornerstone. And things that we thought were dead are breathing in life again, 'cause you caused your sun to shine on darkest nights. All that you've done, we will pour out. Our love, this will be an anthem song. It's Jesus we love. Oh, how we love. You are the one. Hearts adore.
a savior, and what a brother, what a friend, lifter of the lowly. God, you meet me where I am. Your heart, it knows no borders, knows no walls. You're constantly moving towards me with open arms. I've never known a love like you. I've never known a love like yours. Oh, I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. Jesus, what a savior, and what a brother, what a friend, lifter of the lowly. God, you lead me where I am. Your heart, it knows no borders, knows no walls. You're constantly moving towards me with open arms. I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. No, I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. No. And hallelujah, hallelujah, what a beautiful way you've shown us. And hallelujah, hallelujah, what a wonderful Savior. And hallelujah, hallelujah, what a beautiful way you've shown us. And hallelujah, hallelujah, what a wonderful Savior. I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. No, I've never known a love like yours. 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 Oh, oh, I've never known a love like yours. I've never known a love like yours. Oh.
Thanks so much for inviting us into your living rooms today. It's been awesome to worship together all across the city and maybe even beyond as a community called Grace Athens. And just so you know, the board and the staff, we are diligently looking and searching for a venue for our Sunday services. Right now, we're happy that we're so missional community centered, that church really happens not just on Sunday at a building, but we are being the church throughout the week in these communities. But we also know just the sacredness of trying to come together in person. And so with COVID, it's been obviously been difficult, and we are just so committed at Grace Athens to being safe and to being good citizens here in our city and in our state. So we're looking at what are options outside of online that we could start participating in this spring. And so we're going to keep you updated on that, and would love any input that you might have moving forward. So from now till then, we're going to continue to gather online in this virtual way and be together in communities throughout the week. And then we will together make some decisions moving forward, and we will keep you up to date on all of those. Thanks for being with us today. Have an amazing week. God bless you.